The exhibit has been organized on 3 waves of immigration. The first wave is the largest, and it started about 1850 when gold was discovered in California, and it continued until 1924 when the federal government passed a law closing down immigration, free, open immigration. This first wave was constituted by very poor people that left because they couldn't make a living in Italy. The groups of immigrants that came here come from Piedmont, Liguria, Tuscany, Calabria, and Sicily. And they were poor, but they found here what they did not find on the East Coast, because in the East Coast they arrived last after the Anglos, the Irish, the German. So they had to settle for, the hardest job, the lowest paid. And here they were, I think, a little more adventurous, because think what it meant coming, after you got to New York, coming to California. And some of them took the ship that went around, South America and came back and so on. California was made by Italians, and this is not an exaggeration, because what happened here, they came and found virgin territory. So they established agriculture. The Italians established agriculture as we see it now. The fishing industry, which is still in Italian hands, up and down California. They built the first cannery, Del Monte, and then the banks. In the late 19th century, there were 2 or 3 banks here in San Francisco. And then they all merged into the Bank of America. But banking, as we see it in California today, was started by Italians. Not to speak of the wine industry. The beginning was done by Italians. The story of the Jacuzzi family is now defined by the Jacuzzi bathtub, which has become famous all over the world. But actually, that invention was a footnote in an extremely rich history of their family. They emigrated between 1907 and 1920. They were a family of 13 children. One of them, Rachele Jacuzzi, was a genius, because with a 3rd grade education, he came here after doing all the menial jobs that immigrants do. Eventually went to work for a factory. They made propellers for the airplanes in the First World War for American Air Force. And he refined the idea and built a better propeller, much thinner than the one they were using. And this is the propeller that was called the toothpicks, because it was so thin and slim, and it increased the power of the motor. After this, they built pumps for agriculture, and eventually a grandson developed rheumatoid arthritis, and the mother asked the family to build something to provide hydrotherapy for this child, and they adapted one of their pumps, the pumps they had been building for agriculture, and the Jacuzzi was started, and the rest is history. The second wave goes from 1930 maybe to 1970. Was the smallest because by that time the immigration laws were in effect, so you could only come if you had an American citizen that sponsored you, a family member, for displaced person, and for people that were escaping the racial laws. My father was an immigrant at 55 years old who came to this country not knowing a word of English. He had had a brilliant career in the Italian army, and here you see him in his high uniform with a sword, and he had been awarded medals by the king. So his world was shattered by the war, because He had been looking forward to retirement as a general, and when he came back from the war, he had nothing. There was no pension, we had lost all the money, and so my mother was American, so we could come to this country. Once he came here, what would he do? He had no trade of any kind. He had just been a commander. But he was an incredible man, and he started importing trinkets from Italy. Cheap jewelry and other souvenirs. We went to gift shop in Chinatown, Fisherman Wharf, Cliff House, all tourist spots, and sold, and he did very well. And unfortunately, he died when he could start enjoying the fruit of his labor. The Viterbi family escaped from the racial laws that Mussolini implemented toward the end of the 30s. And they came first to Boston and eventually to California. They were upper middle class. The father was a doctor. The mother had a wonderful life in Bergamo. When they came here, she adapted, and she started studying English. And after 6 months, she wrote a very moving essay about what she felt about the new country. And in this essay, she writes, all these people escaped from Italy because without liberty, it is impossible to live. And their son, Andrew Viterbi, grew up to be the famous inventor and engineer who invented the Viterbi algorithm, and then went on to found Qualcomm, a company which was the first global provider of cellular phones. The third wave of immigration is presented in an interactive way based on 30 interviews done by Italian journalist Paolo Pontoniere. The third wave started about 1970 and includes mainly scientists, researchers, electrical engineers who came. They were among the first to come to Silicon Valley because Olivetti wanted to establish a branch here. So many of them came with Olivetti, but pretty soon Olivetti pulled back and they stayed, and all of them became not just discoverers and innovators, but entrepreneurs, and they all were very successful. And this immigration continues to today.
When I moved here in '99, I had a company in Italy that was doing fairly well. My idea was to move that here in Silicon Valley.
Yes, I had a dream coming here. The dream was life in California.
I think that the world should be a big place, and I consider myself an international person.
Roberto Crea came from Italy and joined Herb Boyer, who had founded Genentech, which is one of the most important biotech companies in the world. And together they discovered artificial human insulin, which has simplified the lives of people who suffer from diabetes. The main reason why all these people who had a good life in Italy, they came here, is because their working life wasn't very satisfactory. The Italian government does not give enough money for research, and therefore all their new ideas, new discoveries were not, did not have a chance of being carried out. Here they found the perfect situation to pursue their ideas and to realize their ideas.
Marvelous exhibit, very down to earth, and a very good comparison from the modern day to the past.